Welcome back, comic book fans. It's Rusty again from Collector Auctions, and I've got another tutorial video for you today. Now, this one's going to be very similar to my last tutorial in that we are going to be creating a signature window in a bag and board in order to take a comic book to a comic book convention to have it signed. And it works just as well going to CGC. So the steps are going to be very similar to my last episode that I did on this, but the circumstances are just slightly different. So I felt like just doing another tutorial on this to show you a different way to create your signature windows for your bag and boards. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this book right here. It is Ghost Machine #1. This is the preview issue for the whole Jeff Johns Ghost Machine universe. And as you can see, although it's a little hard, right there is Jeff Johns' autograph. And I got that signed at Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland. And what I'm going to do in this episode, very similar to my last episode, I'm going to create a signature window here. But in this case, I'm going to have a team of artists sign this when I go to Fan Expo. And I've got the list right here. Let me go over it real quick. So Jeff Johns is already on here, but unlike the last video where I was very specific about where I wanted artists to sign, in that case, I had 2 signature windows that I put on here. This case, I've got a whole team of people. So what we're going to do is, in this case, we're going to create a giant window for the whole team to sign. And let me go over the quick list of who I need to add to this. Brad Anderson, Brian Hitch, Francis Mandipool, I hope I pronounced that right, Jason Fabic, and Peter Tomasi, all of which are going to be at Fan Expo. So it's going to be a big day going to Fan Expo and getting every one of those signatures. But that's a lot of signatures for this book. I cannot put multiple little windows for them to sign. It wouldn't give them enough room to really work. So in this case, in today's episode, we're going to do one giant window. And again, that is the difference between this episode and the last tutorial I did on basically the same subject. So what I'm going to do is take this book right now, and we're going to get it in the shop, and we'll go through the tutorial, and I'll show you every step I do to get this book ready, and then we'll come back and do a wrap-up. All right, everybody, I thought I would do another how-to video on how to prep your comic for going to CGC or to take with you to a Comic-Con to get an artist signed in person. I've got an example here. This is Ghost Machine. This is the kind of the preview issue for the Jeff Johns universe. Of course, you've got Geiger and Redcoat and Rook. I don't think that's the character Rook, but I think that's from the Rook Exodus series. And this was the preview issue that came out. And Jeff Johns came to Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland, just as the first issues of the new line of comics was coming out. This had already been out. And I did get Jeff Johns to sign this. So this is a book that is not going to go directly to CGC until they get to the point where they're going to authenticate autographs just like CBCS. But this is a book that I want to take with me to the Fan Expo up in Philadelphia and add additional signatures. The other artists in here that are going to be up in Philadelphia are Brad Anderson, the colorist. You got Brian Hitch, Jason Fabic, Peter Tomasi. I think there might be somebody else too that I'm forgetting about. But this isn't really a CGC candidate right now. I just want to take it with me so I can get signed and get a whole bunch of autographs in one book right here. Now, I don't have any particular, the reason I'm showing you this book is I don't have any particular spot that I want to put artists. All I know is that I'm going to go to one event where I'm going to have at least 4 to 5 artists and creators sign this book. And I thought it would be a good idea to show you how I do the prep for a book like this. In my last video, I did one where I had spots for Jason Fabic and Brad Anderson. And I was very specific about where I wanted to put those spots. But this is a case where it's a little bit generic. So what I want to do is create one big opening so they can sign wherever they want to sign. But we're going to prep it the same way. So we go back to the tools of the trade here. We've got the X-Acto knife and a straight edge. We've got our painter's tape. And I got a marker that we'll use at the end although I don't think I'm necessarily going to have to do it on this one. The last one, I put the names of the creators on there, showing them where I wanted them to sign it. And that's something I would do when I sent to CGC a book where I want a signature in a very specific place. In this one, I probably won't mark it up because it'll be pretty obvious where to sign. But I do want to prep this just the exact same way. And I might have mentioned in my last video that I go through a lot of painter's tape because I'm a little OCD about this. So what we're going to do is, and I forgot the scissors too, we're just going to cut some painter's tape. And what I like to do is to frame your bag and board. And the reason I do this is to give the comic a little bit more security. And especially in a case like this, it's going to need some stability by the time I cut the window, because the plan is to cut pretty much the entirety of the middle open, the whole middle open right here, and create a giant signing area. So what I'm doing right now is basically framing what the open area is going to be. And you want to make sure that the bag, once you cut the bag, has some firmness to it so it doesn't just slip off. Like when I cut this right here, if it was just the bag, it would be very loose and the book could even slip out. This adds some stability, some structure, some firmness to this edge, and you'll see that once I get everything cut. But this is my process. You guys can let me know what you think about this, if it's a little bit of overkill. But one of the reasons I like to do this when I take a book like this to a convention is it saves time when you go there. We're going to open that up, by the way. As you can see, I want to be able to open this up at some point, and let's open up that right there. And close the bag. You can see this is one of those self-adhesive bags. I like those a lot, actually. Although I probably shouldn't waste it on something like this. This will end up getting disposed after I get back home, after going to the Fan Expo. Should have got a much cheaper bag and board. But I do this so when you go to the con and you have this right here, you don't have to waste time at the con taking your books out of the bag and board, getting them ready to go and hand to the artist, and then after you're finished, coming back and then having to rebag everything, and then rebag it with what could be wet paint, wet ink, and you risk the danger of messing up the signature that you just spent all this time and money getting. So, and as I mentioned in my last video, I do like to reinforce these corners. This is one of the reasons that I'm probably, like I said, I'm probably a little OCD on this, but this gives it a buffer there, something to cushion it if it bumps against something. But I'm looking forward to going to Fan Expo. Brian Hitch is going to be there, who's the artist for Redcoat, but he's also the artist of the Ultimates, and big fan of the Ultimate, the original series. And I actually own, I think it's 4 pages of original artwork. I think 3 of them are from the original 12 issues, and then I've got one from the second 12 issue or 13 issue. Was it 12 or 13 issues? I think it was something like that. But I own several pages. They were easy birthday and Christmas gifts from my mom back in the day. She was ordering it directly from Brian Hitch's website. I wish I should have been buying that stuff up like crazy at the time, and I probably should have been I was giving her the list of the less expensive pages, although I do have some good ones in there. I gave Mom the list of the less expensive pages, so it wouldn't be too expensive for her. But you look back and what some of the things that you could have bought if you'd put a little bit more money into it at the time. These days, original artwork, especially stuff like that, is probably really, really expensive. I haven't seen a Ultimates Brian Hitch page come up on eBay anytime recently, but I can only imagine that the prices are, at this point, I'd imagine the prices are probably quadrupled. Is that even a word? I mean, it's multiplied by 10 at this point, I would imagine. All right, so what you see here is the whole thing is completely framed. And what we're going to do is we are literally going to cut out the entire thing right here. And that's even going to expose the Jeff Johns autograph, and I'm okay with that. It's in Sharpie. I'm not too worried about damaging that autograph. But we're going to create an area, and that way the artist can sign wherever they want within this region. But the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to reopen this, and we're going to take the book out. And we're going to set it on the side. I'm actually going to take the good board out as well. And the one thing I didn't show you before is I still have my scrap backing board that I use to create these windows. And what we'll take is our X-Acto knife and the straight edge right here. And we line it up against the edge of where the tape is. And we cut out the plastic area right here. And this way you do this, you don't risk damaging the book or even putting creases and cuts into the good backing board. And when you send a CGC, I would do this exactly the same way. In this case, every book can be a little bit different. And you see this, I didn't cut it all the way there, so let's go back on that. For example, I just sent in a Wolverine #1 to the Frank Miller group of artists. It was Frank Miller and Joe Rubinstein, Chris Claremont, and you had Marsh, and who was the letterer? Oh my God, I'm blanking. Tom Orzechowski, I think. Did I mispronounce that? I can't remember. But I sent it in for the entire group. And sorry about that. I just hit the camera there. Let's see if we can stop that. All right, so you see that and when I sent that in, I did a very similar thing. I opened this up so they could sign wherever they wanted to. So now we've got a big giant window right there, and you can see how loose this is now. These edges are very, very flimsy. So we're going to put the board back in there, and let's see if we can straighten up our surface. I put this parchment down here really just to keep the area as clean as possible. That cutting board that you see under there has been with me since 1985. I've used that thing ever since I was first year in college as an art student. Okay, so even out, you see this is still pretty loose. But we'll get the book back in there. And we're just going to slide it in. And we'll make sure the book goes underneath the lip right there. And then we're going to seal the back. And that's pretty much it. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I send these books into CGC, I don't just send it to them like that. I will take, I don't have the right size bag here, but you'll get the idea. I like to take, if I can, a little bit larger, either magazine size or maybe a silver or golden age size bag, and put the comic in there. And especially when I send it to CGC, this is exactly what I would do. I'd just put a piece of tape there and hold it like that. And when I send it in, the front is protected. And I do the same thing when I go to the comic book shows. I will keep this in a separate bag like this, just so this area will stay protected, not get scratched or anything. And then when I get ready to go to the hand this to any of the artists up there at Fan Expo, I'll take it out, and there they go. They can sign wherever they want on this surface right here. They can even pull these up. It's a little loose, right? So that's basically it. That's how I prep a comic for getting a whole group of artists to sign a comic at one event like this. And again, that works the same if you were sending us to CGC. So there you go, guys. That is my tutorial on setting up this signature window for your comic to get signed. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. I enjoyed doing another tutorial on how to create these signature windows. In this case, as you saw, it was one giant window, and that will give plenty of room for these artists to work in. And let's just show you the book, the finished product. As you can tell, I did not bother to put arrows because I don't need to direct their signatures. At this point, they can figure out where they want to sign and how to squeeze it in with the other artists as we go along. But fun time doing this. I hope you got something out of it. I definitely look forward to getting the signatures when I go to Fan Expo. And I had thought that Gary Frank was going to be there too, because I definitely want to add him. He's the artist on Geiger, and that's one that will definitely need to get added to this as well at some point down the line. But this kind of tutorial, the way you set this up right here, the way we do this is good for when you do in-person signings, when you go to a comic book convention. It protects your books, and that's what you want to do. That's what I want to do. When you go to these things, it will save you a lot of time when you go. You don't have to unbag these when you go in. You don't have to worry about stacking these up and putting them back in the bags and worry about smearing the autograph as it's drying because you're trying to get out of the way now. You can literally take this and put it on the side, and depending on how it's signed, you can basically control the situation a lot better without worrying about damaging the books as much. And again, that is the big benefit to doing this kind of thing. Now, when you send it to CGC, they require you to put signature windows with your comics. That way, the comics are protected. If you do your own bags and boards just like this, it will allow them, basically it will allow you to direct the autographs a little bit better. If I was sending this book in, or a book like this, let's say Wolverine #1, the limited series, and sending it in for the big CGC 50th anniversary signing, where there was at least 6 different people that were going to be signing the book. This is exactly the way I would do this. And that way, everybody can sign where they want to sign. If you have 1 or 2 artists, then you can do like I did in my last tutorial episode. You can direct those signatures exactly where you want to. But this works for in-person and for CGC signings, and hope you guys got something out of this. Hope you enjoyed it today. Definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think of this process. Also, if you like this kind of content, you want me to continue with these tutorial episodes and my regular shows, definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any of the episodes that I put out each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Definitely, I look forward to hearing from you. Just remember, guys, every comic has a story.